What's up, YouTube? Back once again with the market shenanigans with week 23 this time. I do have some trades this week, but unfortunately I already know ahead of time, or at least I have a very strong suspicion that I did make some mistakes. And before I get into this video, I want to voice some expectations in how I'm going to approach this upcoming analysis. And, it kind of sucks when you make mistakes, especially when you go for weeks without mistakes and you're kind of like, oh yes, this is good. I'm performing the way that I would want to, and I feel ready to go into the live markets. And then you have a week where you prove yourself wrong once again, and you make some mistakes that are probably completely unnecessary. But you know what? You gotta be honest with yourself. It's the only way forward. So if I right now rationalize these traits and I would be like, yeah, okay, maybe it's a mistake, but it probably isn't because XYZ, that doesn't serve anyone. That's only going to dig a hole for myself, and it's going to be so difficult to get out of there, because I would basically be refusing to take responsibility over the mistakes that I made. And I don't want to do that. I want to be honest with myself, and I really, really want to, well, get better. And the only way I get better is by seeing where I'm consistently making mistakes and what I can do to prevent that. So I'm just voicing these expectations ahead of time because I really, really want to be honest with myself. So week 23, I have 4 trades here. I think I took all of them. So let's just go right into it, I guess. So I was watching the markets pretty much most of the days, and only Thursday, not really. So let's start with Monday here. And context-wise, I was watching NAS 100. So weekly, really strong move. Daily, really beautiful, beautiful move. This has been on my watch list for a couple of weeks straight, and it's been going great. Honestly, like ever since pretty much the breakout over here, that's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks in a row, I was watching this. So this was great. Same with JPN 225. I mean, pretty much, I don't know, pretty much from this candle onward. So also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 week right now. So 7 weeks I've been watching this. This has been going great. So these are the only things I was watching. That's also on the watch list. Here we are on the 100 minute on the JPN, seeing that there is some kind of bounce happening here, some nice MMB. This was some kind of stage 1, broke out, created a beautiful MMB, started a momentum cycle, broke out, looked really good overall. And US 100 here, I look at the 10 minute, I pretty much want to see a new cycle. I want to see this break down. I want to see some demand fail. I want to see supply overpower demand temporarily, rebuild itself up, and then continue higher. So all right, I only like JPN 225 today, and I do take a trade. All right, so let's take a look. That's this trade. So we already know what this looks like on the weekly and daily, but let's look at the 1000 here. So some kind of stage 1, breaks out very strongly, comes back into what seems to be the demand zone of that, absorbs it, I would say, right? Tests it and just beautifully expands higher into a new high. Here it gets a little bit choppy, but this is still, or it looks really good. Like this is still a momentum cycle. It pulled back towards the rising 1020, exactly what we want to see. And from here, it's bouncing higher. The expectation is higher, 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 right? Here we are on the 100. This is stage 1. This is the breakout. This is the pullback. Beautiful MMB. Breakout again, pullback. I would say this is a nice MMB. Let's see. If this looks good on the 10 minute or on the entry, whatever, then I think this is going to be a beautiful trade. The only thing to look out for at this point is that the low time frame is not too choppy. So this is a 10-minute entry, actually, it seems. Okay, so here we have some kind of push that reaccumulates, fairly choppy, then it breaks out, breaks out, breaks out, right? So this stage 2 has to be strong enough for me to consider the reaccumulation trade. When I take a look here, yeah, I already know that I'm going to say this is a mistake, because look at the pullbacks, okay? So we started over here and pushed over here and pulled back all the way over here. This is way more than 50%, way more. This is like 70, 80% or something. Okay. That's already proof of choppiness, but whatever. Maybe this is the first breakout, right? And we just do one final mitigation and test and we break out strong from here. That can happen and happened many times in the past. And those are actually beautiful, beautiful setups. So is this part really nice and strong? Okay, breakout, right? This is the move. This is around 50%. Comes way deeper than that, way deeper, okay? Then it breaks out again from here to here. Okay, here it's a bit better, but the way it moved, look how choppy it is. Look how choppy this is. This is insane. Very choppy. And then as it reaccumulates, like, it's just really wicky, really, really choppy, and it doesn't look too good. If I look at it on the 1 minute, so this is the momentum cycle, right? Okay, so when I look at this, so from here, this is like almost complete mitigation. Here it's kind of okay, kind of shallow, continues higher. Okay, here it kind of bounces on the flippy. This should be the reignition, and this is the reaccumulation. I don't know. I don't know. It's not the best, is it? Like, there is some acceleration away, and this momentum cycle, I don't know if this should have been followed, honestly. Like, when I look at this as the E, this is really not a clean E. It just isn't. Like, it's choppy, it's wicky. The types of trades that I tend to normally take, they don't look like this. They're much prettier. Like, let's take a look at some of the, like, last week's entries. Like, this thing had a much higher acceleration. This stage 2 was really nice and strong. This is not choppy. There's imbalance, a lot of imbalance in this push, right? Okay. Something that was not a mistake. I don't know. Okay, so for example, this. Also, big imbalance left behind, imbalance left behind. This is also not necessarily the strongest, but also the reaccumulation is not nearly as choppy as what I saw there. Here, same thing. Look how strong this is. And then the reaccumulation is not that choppy, and it looks kind of nice. Like, if I compare that to whatever I'm seeing here, with this being the entry, I don't know. It really, really looks choppy. Like, the rules are met, technically, right? Stage 2, reaccumulation, lows liquidated, reignition, pullback, and then I set up the buy stop, right? That's met. But honestly, I already wrote it here. I see this as choppy. And ultimately, if I could decide whether to take this trade now or not, I would most likely say no. I would just look at the 10 minute and I would be like, this is moving in a very, very choppy way, and I'll just stay out. So ultimately, I'm gonna call this a mistake. All right, so let's go here. Call this a mistake. Call it a mistake because it's very choppy and very wicky. Boom, there we go. Yeah, so that was this trade, no reflection. Cool, let's move on. So now we have Tuesday. Once again, JPN 225, has anything changed? Not really. This is still very much valid. If it looks good on the lowers, I can trade that. NAS 100, nothing has changed here either. This is just moving higher, pretty good. And here's some crypto that I was watching, Hype USD. Yep, very beautiful weekly move. Here we are following the move. This was a beautiful MMB. Looking for trades over here made a lot of sense. And now as this is pulling back, it definitely makes sense to look for some more trades over here. So makes sense. Here's the watch list. So these are the 100 on both. Okay, so JPN continued higher, and I think I watched for some trades the previous day and then it dumped. Now it needs to rebuild itself. And US 100 dumped into a demand zone and is bouncing from that demand zone. So I thought this is okay to watch, but this is actually something that I'm not too sure about, because I'm going to take a trade in here and I really, really wonder if that was a right decision or not. So that's this trade, NAS 100. So 1000, right? This looks completely fine. I mean, momentum cycle is still intact. This is very disconnected from the 10 second or 1 minute. So even a tiny, tiny move is enough for me to take profit, right? What matters is that this is in a really nice cycle, which it is. Here I am on the 100. So we have the beginning of a momentum cycle, and then over here it dumps big time. So here we had a breakout, right? And that had a straight up V-shaped pullback, all right? V-shaped pullback. I hate V-shaped pullbacks. I think they're garbage. And I'm not quite sure whether I should trade this or not. I remember that I noticed in the past that these kinds of setups where they break out and they revisit the demand zone, that I can trade the ICI from that, basically the bounce, so to say. But I'm not entirely sure whether that is true or not. Anyway, here I am on the 10-minute, right? So in order to see some kind of bullishness, I would need to see a breakout above at least this. And I do see that, and I do see it with quite some nice momentum. I think this is a nice momentum cycle. I think it's not necessarily overextended. There's some kind of stage 1 over here, and here we would probably have MMB1. This is MMB2, and this would be MMB3. Which should technically still be tradable, right? The question is whether I actually want to trade this kind of stuff, or whether I want to see this start its run, then reaccumulate, and then we get into it. Perhaps that would make much more sense. Then what often happens is that this run, the bounce from the demand zone, just continues higher, right? And then I would ask myself, hey, could I not have followed it already here somewhere? And to be quite honest, it sucks that I have to say it, but I'm not entirely sure. I'm not entirely sure how to approach this kind of price action, whether it's still valid or not. Because technically, on the 100, there is no MMB happening right now. So I should at least wait for the pullback towards the rising 1020, right? Now it's just moving. This is the preceding stage 2 that kind of allows me or gives me the green light to trade the follow-up reaccumulation. So I really think that going forward, in order to reduce confusion, I think I'm just going to skip this kind of price action completely. This had all the reason to continue higher, right? We had this big breakout. Now this is valid for me to look for an MMB. So the moment this would pull back to an MMB, over here, I mean, I could have already traded inside of here on the lower time frame for the follow-up, something like this. But the first time this pulls back to the rising 1020, that's when I can look for some kind of trade in here, right? That makes total sense. But if it breaks out and then dumps completely, well, I think I should probably like look for the same thing from here. Like, yes, this mitigated, and I can probably look for the trade one more time over here after it reaccumulates, right? That would make a lot of sense. So I really think that I should ultimately not trade this kind of price action. Anyway, if that was valid, then this would be an MMB indeed. And what happened inside of here, we had some kind of stage 2 that reaccumulated, broke out higher, and now is reaccumulating again. Definitely some kind of reaccumulation happening over here. Definitely reignition and a nice MB. So overall, the E is not bad. I think the E is kind of decent, honestly. Like here, it liquidated something. So the idea here is that the moment we get a liquidity grab here, we expect a liquidity grab on the downside as well, which happens right over here. So technically, it has reaccumulated. It has refueled for continuation. So now, if we see a reignition and a nice MB, we can most definitely look for the continuation. So I think this was really nice. No problem with that. But this is, in my opinion, a bit of a problem. This kind of creates a stage 1. So I do not want to trade this kind of price action. So I'm going to call it a mistake. Mistake. Mistake why? Tax. Mistake. Because it is stage 1. Boom. There we go. So here I write instant -1. Perhaps the stop was too tight. I don't think that was a problem necessarily. I just think that this was not the right area to trade in. But yeah, that is Tuesday. Wednesday. Wow, lots of context. So JPN, once again, looks like it continued higher very nicely. So still on the watch list. NAS 100 also continuing higher, still on the watch list. BTC, I was looking for some shorts here, I believe, because here I was waiting for some kind of bullishness that breaks down, right? The demand broke, and now following this short makes a lot of sense, in my opinion. I'm also looking at ETH, of course, because usually when BTC rips lower, ETH rips even harder. And here are some cryptos that I'm also watching. So hype actually for bullish stuff, okay? And here I am watching VVV. All right, I took this screenshot on the wrong screen, but whatever. I know I didn't take any VVV, so doesn't matter. So here is the 10-minute. So I'm clearly waiting for some breakout above here to follow on JPN. On US 100, we have a long stage 1, and I'm looking for a breakout above all of this to start following. And Bitcoin and ETH, I'm just kind of looking at how this is developing on the 10-minute. We probably see some kind of bullishness here, and the moment this bullish trend fails and shows weakness, that's where I would follow for shorts. JPN 225 looks decent for continuation, but I end up taking no trades. All right. So that's Wednesday. Thursday, I didn't do anything. And Friday, I think I had one more trade or something. So let's take a look. So I was watching Bitcoin. Bitcoin fell even deeper. Like on the weekly, this is a beautiful move and makes a lot of sense to follow this bearish. Same with ETH. Some news. And here is my watch list of all the different cryptos that I was following. And I did a screen, and I pretty much followed the ones that looked best on those lower time frames and the ones that were relatively the weakest, right? So I think that's ZRO and Polygon and ADA. Those were my main watchers, I believe. So if I take a look here, yep, layer 0, this is already where I set up my trade. Nexo, I was watching. Cardano, I was watching. What happened over here? This looked like a trade that I was supposed to take. Anyway, and also Link. Link looked relatively nice in regards to how clean the structure is. So if there was like a nice setup here, I would probably take it. So crypto shorts look interesting. I screened some and chose the weakest ones to follow. And I have 2 trades here. I have a trade on Bitcoin. So let's take a look. So this is shorts, right? But I have it reversed. So big move, reaccumulates, right? Some kind of diagonal or whatever. I don't know where it goes, like somewhere over here. Doesn't quite matter too much. Then we have some kind of stage 1 over here, some kind of flippy. So ever since the breakout over here, this was most definitely valid for shorts. This was really, really nice to follow. I don't know, perhaps I should have followed that earlier already. But yeah, here we are on the 100. Big stage 2, and here it goes sideways and it breaks out higher. I thought this is good to follow. So here we are on the 10-minute. This is the big stage 1. It breaks out with good momentum and creates a nice MMB over here. So the expectation for me was this continuation. I think that makes a lot of sense. Here we are on the 1-minute. Good stage 2. Last push was very nice. Reaccumulated. Most definitely liquidated some lows over here and here. That looks good. And then it had its reignition over here. I think this reignition looks nice. And this little MB looks nice as well. So setting up this short makes a lot of sense to me. Unfortunately, I got tapped in and instantly fucked up. So the only thing I'm wondering here about a little bit is whether this was a valid reaccumulation or if I should have waited for some kind of breakdown here before I follow this again. Basically saying that this is already extended a little bit and maybe we would like to see a reset. Maybe we would like to see at least this pull back to the EMAs and rebuild itself up. That is potentially like, yeah, that makes some sense. I think, so this is 74K. 74K is here. Okay. So it must have broken out over here somewhere. Wait. What am I saying? Yeah. So it broke out over here, created MMB1, MMB2, and this would be MMB3. So I think actually this was pretty valid. I think this was fine. I think it was just unlucky. I think this was a good trade, honestly. I don't see a problem with this one. Okay, I'm gonna call it good. No problem with this trade. Instant -1, that just happens. Okay. All good. Okay, good. And last trade of the week was this one, which was a crypto. I had some trouble setting up the order, trying to get in with the limit. Okay, got filled with the limit. Cool. So this was ZRO. So here we are on the 1000. This is most definitely a very, very bullish market, right? And it has shown that it can really move and can move big time, right? So I think it makes sense to get involved on this market. There's clearly some kind of resistance over here, and we break above all of that. We create some MMB over here, some MMB over here, and now we have an MMB over here. Okay, so I don't think this is overextended by any means. Let's see how this looks on the lower. So you have a stage 2 that completely retraces and then breaks higher. From here to here, the 50 is somewhere around here. So this definitely qualifies as a shallow pullback. This looks like a nice little flag over here, and it breaks out, right? We definitely have reignition here. So reignition happens, pulls back a little bit. I mean, we can see some kind of inside liquidations here, definitely some sideways. So setting up the sell stop here makes a lot of sense to me. Like, this is most definitely meeting the criteria of pushing, going sideways a little bit, and continuing. Yes, reignition, pause, continuation. And this taps me in, and I go risk-free on like a 10-15 minute after this candle. After its candle, I'm like, yep, this looks amazing. If this wants to continue, it can continue. But then out of nowhere, it just creates an enormous wick. Just what the fuck, absolutely crazy. But luckily with crypto, the way it works with liquidity books and everything, since I had myself wait, what was it? It's a buy stop. Since I have my buy stop over here, it has to crunch through the liquidity book, right? So it did crunch through me, and I did take a little bit of a bigger loss because of slippage and whatnot. So it wasn't a complete break even, but I ended up incurring maybe a minus 0.3, including commissions. So yeah, that's what I also wrote here, minus 0.3. But I think this trade was overall very nice. I don't think there was anything wrong with this trade. So that was good. Good. And that's all there is to say, I think. Okay. So that brings me to analysis for this week. So these are the trades that I took. Overall, I'm down minus 3.9. So let's fill that in. Okay. Minus 3.9 R. And if I trade it perfectly, I would be down only minus 1.5. Minus 1.5. 0.5 R. Okay, because I would only take the Bitcoin trade, and I would only take that ZRO short. I would basically not trade JPN because it was choppy, and I would not have traded NAS because it was in a stage 1 without the creation of an MB on the 100 minute. So yeah, what went bad? Yo, what went bad? Traded a choppy E, and also traded 100 min stage 1. Yeah, let's make it a little bit wider here. Okay, so that sucks. What went well? I was relatively patient and I did follow rules quite well, but unfortunately this really sucks. I'm gonna take a screenshot of that. This kind of sucked. Should not have happened. Boop. And let's also take a screenshot of that choppy E that I took, which is this one. Boop. By the way, just to compare what the E looks like here. Yo, what? Whoa. Okay. Just to compare the E's here. Like, this is so much cleaner than what I'm seeing here, right? Like, it's not as choppy, it's not as wicky. It has nice full-bodied candles that don't come back to mitigate. It's just so much nicer. And I also kind of like this trade. So if we take a look at this trade compared to this trade, like this moved so much nicer, in my opinion. This just looks erratic. It really looks like a lot of back and forth. So yeah, let's put that here, make that a little bit smaller. Okay, it doesn't need to be huge, as long as I'm able to zoom into it, which I am. Okay. So that's that. Overall, how do I rate this week? I think I was just a little bit impatient with NAS. That's why I traded to stage 1. I was a little bit too happy to follow it because it has been going so well. I was just like, yes, yes, Nas, let's go, let's go. So I took it. And with the JPN trade, honestly, when did the JPN trade happen? I think it happened like very, very early in the morning, right? Yeah, 9:03. So I literally had just a few minutes to decide whether this is good or not. And I went over all those like normal rules, which were all met. But then there is this one rule of wickiness, choppiness, where it's actually, if it wasn't for the wicks, this would be a beautiful setup. But this is just that one additional detail that I feel like takes a little bit more experience to actually see and to make you prevent taking trades. And it's still something, this is like, I think my most recent refinement where I started paying a lot of attention to the wicks and trying to eliminate that from my trading. So it makes sense that it's still showing up a little bit, but I need to be more aware of this. And I really want to filter out this kind of price action. So if I go into lessons, learn to filter out choppy, wicky price action on all time frames. All time frames. Especially like the E sucks, but if it's on the higher, then there is a solid expectation that the choppiness is going to continue on the lowers, right? So we want to, or I really want to reduce this. So that's probably the number one thing that I need to work on right now. Okay, let's create the next week here. Boop, week 24. Sheesh, what? Oh, right, that's not how I do it. My bad. I have to go here, and this is where week 24 goes. Okay. Okay, what to focus on? Good contacts, I mean, duh, but this is no longer that relevant. What is relevant is the most recent lesson, which once again is filter out choppy wiki price action. Filter out choppy wiki PA. 3 exclamation marks. So that's the most important, and strong candle close breakouts equals reignition. That's just something that I'm going to say on top of everything. Yeah, but this is no longer that relevant. I'm pretty good at this. So that's that. I don't think there's anything else to talk about necessarily. One last thing I'm going to do is put all of it into here. So June 1. What was that? JPN 225. June 1 taken at 0903, and that was a minus 1.2. NAS 100 June 2 1037 minus 1.2. BTC June 5, what time? 9:12 minus 1.2. And crypto June 5, 13:12 minus 0.3. Okay, well, that takes me a little bit deeper into drawdown. Again, I'm at minus 19 now. If I take a look at this, so I've been slowly grinding up. It's okay. This is completely fine. Like, not the best, but this is normal for lower time frame. One day, what might happen is that all 3 of these become winners because they are taken on different assets, right? I cannot affect the outcome of the trade. I can only ensure that I take quality trades, which granted, I failed a little bit this week. 2 out of the 4 trades I took were not the best, but hey, it is what it is. Even if I become profitable one day, that doesn't mean that I'm making 0 mistakes, right? It just means that my mistake rate is low enough to allow my EV to be positive. I know that if I trade exactly according to the system, my EV is giga positive, like so positive. Just this year, which is like half of the year is gone. But this year, I'm already up like 40R or something, had I traded perfectly. Normally, I'm up like 10R or something. So even with all the mistakes, I'm actually positive. Not that positive, but still. And if I can just ensure that some of these mistakes will not be taken in the future, I'm gonna be doing just fine. So yeah, gonna have to pay attention to this next week. And that's all there is to say. Okay, I've been yapping for 30 minutes. That's more than enough. I'll see you guys in the markets next week. See ya.